It looked like the trip of a lifetime, a wholesome cultural exchange wrapped in snow and northern lights. We watched the Johnston family pack their bags, bundle up in winter gear, and fly across the world to Finland. On the surface, it was heartwarming. They were reuniting with their beloved former exchange student Joose. They were there to learn about his life, experience the Finnish sauna culture, and bond as an international family unit. The cameras captured the smiles, the sled rides, and the laughter. But what if I told you that the footage you saw on TLC was a carefully constructed mask? What if the Johnstons' trip to Finland was a lie? According to new theories and reports circulating behind the scenes, they weren't there for a vacation. They were there on a desperate, high-stakes mission to manage a crisis that threatened to expose the entire family. The snow may have been real, but the smiles? Those might have been the most expensive special effects of the entire season. Before we peel back the layers of this frozen cover-up and reveal the dark secret allegedly hiding behind that reunion, I need you to do something for me. If you want to support real, unfiltered investigations into reality TV's biggest secrets, go ahead and hit that like button right now. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You are not going to want to miss what we have uncovered about the network's involvement in this scandal. Let's start with the narrative they fed us. For weeks, the show hyped up this grand adventure. The storyline was simple and sweet. The Johnstons missed Joose. Joose missed the Johnstons. So, in a grand gesture of love and cultural appreciation, Trent and Amber decided to take the entire clan to Helsinki and beyond. We were treated to scenes of the family navigating the airport, dealing with the cold, and the heartwarming embrace when they finally spotted Joose. It was classic reality TV gold. We saw them eating reindeer meat, jumping into frozen lakes, and trying to navigate the language barrier. It was framed as the ultimate family holiday, a testament to how close-knit the Johnstons are, willing to travel 4,000 miles just to see a friend. It was designed to make you feel good. It was designed to make you think, wow, look how much they care about this kid. But that is exactly why you need to be suspicious. When reality TV tries this hard to sell you on how wholesome a moment is, it's usually because they are trying to distract you from what is happening just out of frame. You have to look at the logistics of this trip to understand why the official story starts to crumble. Let's talk about money. Finland is not a budget destination. It is consistently ranked as one of the most expensive countries in the world. A simple coffee can set you back a small fortune, let alone hotels, food, and travel for a group of that size. We are talking about Trent, Amber, Jonah, Elizabeth, Anna, Alex, Emma, and even Bryce. That is not a cheap family getaway. That is a logistical nightmare with a price tag that could easily rival a down payment on a house. We know the Johnstons do well for themselves, but this level of expenditure for a casual visit? It doesn't add up. Financial experts who analyze reality TV production budgets have pointed out that trips of this magnitude are rarely, if ever, paid for by the families themselves. This was a production trip. TLC footed the bill. But networks don't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just because it would be nice to see Joose again. They spend money when there is a return on investment, or more importantly, when there is an asset to protect. Why would the network fly 9 people across the Atlantic in the middle of winter? Was it really just for content? Or was the content the excuse? Think about it. If you just wanted a reunion episode, it would have been infinitely cheaper and easier to fly Joose back to Georgia. He knows the house, he knows the routine, and it costs a fraction of the price. Bringing Joose to America makes financial sense. Taking the entire Johnston circus to Finland is a financial anomaly, unless, of course, the location was mandatory. Unless the Johnstons had to go to him. This brings us to the first crack in the ice. Why did they have to go there? Let's analyze the interactions. Go back and watch those Finland episodes. Turn off the sound so you aren't manipulated by the happy background music and just watch the body language. When they first meet, sure, there are hugs, but as the trip goes on, look at Joose's eyes. Look at the way he stands when Trent is lecturing the group or when Amber is taking charge of the itinerary. Does that look like a young man who is thrilled to have his American host parents invading his real life? Or does that look like someone who is performing a duty? There are moments of deep, palpable tension that the editors tried to cut around. Awkward silences disguised as cultural misunderstandings. There is a theory gaining traction that Joose was not entirely comfortable with this visit. In fact, some eagle-eyed viewers noticed that Joose often looked at the camera crew, almost as if he was checking to see if he was doing the right thing. It wasn't the relaxed vibe of a kid showing his friends around his hometown. It felt stiff. It felt rehearsed. And there is a very specific reason for that. When Joose left America the first time, the narrative was that he had a great time. But rumors have been swirling on Finnish message boards and deep in the reality TV forums that Joose's return to Finland wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Imagine being a teenager, coming to America, and being thrown into a household that is not only filming a TV show, but is run by two parents known for their strict, controlling, and often overwhelming parenting style. We have seen how Trent and Amber treat their own adult children. We have seen the tracking apps, the constant monitoring, the lectures. Now imagine being a foreign exchange student stuck in that dynamic. The rumor is that when Joose got back to Finland, he started talking. Not to the press, initially, but to friends, to my family. Maybe he let slip that the loving home was actually a high-pressure set. Maybe he mentioned that things were scripted, or that Trent was difficult to live with. In the age of social media, nothing stays private for long. If Joose was starting to spill the tea on what really happens behind the closed doors of the Johnston home, that is a massive liability. The Johnstons' brand is built on being a wholesome, relatable family. If an outsider, someone who lived with them but isn't bound by blood, comes out and says, "Actually, it was a nightmare," that destroys their credibility. It shatters the illusion. And TLC knows this. They protect their investments aggressively. This is where the vacation narrative falls apart and the mission narrative takes over. The theory is that this trip was hastily arranged for damage control. It wasn't planned months in advance out of the kindness of their hearts. It was a scramble. Sources suggest that the network or the family got wind that Joose was becoming a loose cannon, or that there was a risk of him distancing himself from the show publicly. A silent Joose is fine. A hostile Joose is a disaster. So, what is the best way to neutralize a potential whistleblower? You love bomb them. You bring the entire production to their doorstep. You turn the cameras on and force a narrative of friendship and love so publicly that the person cannot possibly speak out against you without looking like a liar. Think about the psychological pressure on Joose. The Johnstons didn't just come to visit. They brought a film crew. They brought the apparatus of the show into his sanctuary. By filming him in Finland, by making him a central part of these happy family episodes, they're essentially locking him into a contract of silence. You can't go to the press and say, "They were terrible to me," 3 months after you starred in a 3-part special where you were laughing and hugging them in a sauna. The footage serves as evidence against any claims he might make in the future. It is a brilliant Machiavellian move. The trip serves as a public record that proves everything is fine. It effectively gaslights anyone who might suspect there was bad blood. And let's talk about the timing. This trip happened right when viewers were starting to turn on Trent and Amber more aggressively regarding their treatment of Anna and Jonah. The public sentiment was shifting. The comment sections were getting nastier. The show needed a win. They needed a storyline that made Trent and Amber look like benevolent, worldly, caring parents. What better way to rehabilitate their image than to fly them to a frozen utopia to connect with a foreign culture? It was a distraction. While we were busy looking at the huskies and the snowsuits, we stopped talking about how they treat their own kids for a few weeks. It was a strategic pivot to a lighter, fluffier storyline to bury the controversy building up back in Georgia. But the darkness of this trip isn't just about PR strategies. It's about the intrusion. There were moments in the Finland episodes where the Johnstons seemed to lack total self-awareness about their imposition. They were loud. They were chaotic. And they took up space in a culture that values quiet, reserve, and personal space. You could see the local Finnish people in the background reacting to them. It wasn't always admiration, it was confusion. And Joose was the bridge. He had to mediate between his real life and this reality TV tornado. The financial irresponsibility aspect also points to a desperate motive. If you are a regular family, even a wealthy one, you do not drop 50 grand on a trip unless it is a honeymoon or a once-in-a-lifetime anniversary. Doing it randomly to see a friend is suspicious. But if you view it as a business expense, a cost of doing business to silence a potential critic and generate positive content, then the price tag makes perfect sense. The network paid for access. They paid for Joose's compliance. Every fancy dinner, every excursion, every hotel room was likely part of a package deal to ensure Joose remained Team Johnston in the public eye. Furthermore, let's consider the inclusion of Bryce. Why bring the boyfriend? Because it reinforces the one big happy family image. It dilutes the focus. If it were just Trent and Amber grilling Joose, it would look like an interrogation. But if you add the kids, the boyfriends, the laughter, it looks like a party. It provides cover. Bryce's presence was a buffer, another body to fill the frame and distract from the fact that the core dynamic, the relationship between the parents and the exchange student, might have been fractured. As we move deeper into this analysis, we have to ask ourselves, what were they afraid Joose would say? The rumors about the NDAs are intense. Non-disclosure agreements are standard in reality TV, but they usually expire. Or they have loopholes. Perhaps Joose's original contract was ending. Perhaps this trip was the condition for a renewal, a way to extend his legal silence for another few years. Film this special with us, get a nice paycheck, and sign here. It's a transaction. The visuals of them giving him gifts, of them praising him, it all feels transactional when you view it through this lens. The editors worked overtime on these episodes. They had to weave a story of connection out of what might have been a very stiff reunion. Notice how much B-roll they used? Lots of shots of the landscape, the city, the food. B-roll is a great way to fill time when the A-roll, the actual interaction between cast members, is lacking substance or warmth. There were fewer deep, meaningful conversations than you would expect. It was mostly activity-based. Let's go sledding. Let's go swimming. Activities are safe. You don't have to talk about feelings or past grievances when you are freezing in a lake. The itinerary was likely packed specifically to avoid any real downtime where the truth could come out. And then there is the Joose's family aspect, meeting his parents. This was presented as a respectful meeting of the in-laws, so to speak. But watch Trent and Amber in those scenes. They are on their best behavior, almost performing a caricature of the good American parents. It felt like a sales pitch. They were selling Joose's parents on the idea that their son was safe, loved, and part of a legacy. Why the hard sell? Unless Joose's parents had expressed doubts. Unless Joose had called home crying during his stay in America. If the parents were skeptical, Trent and Amber had to go there in person to smooth things over, to charm them, to make sure the parents didn't encourage Joose to speak out. It was a diplomatic mission to prevent an international incident that could derail the show. The danger of the secret lies in what it represents. If the Finland trip was indeed a cover-up, it means the entire premise of the show, that this is a real, authentic family living their lives, is fundamentally broken. It means the show has entered a phase where it is manufacturing reality not just for entertainment, but for self-preservation. It means the Johnstons are no longer just participants in a documentary. They are active agents in a conspiracy to protect their fame and fortune at all costs. Maybe the Joose loves us narrative was pushed so hard because they knew the Joose hates us story was about to leak. In the world of PR, you always want to be the first one to speak. By airing the Finland trip, they set the baseline. Look how happy they are. Now, if anyone says otherwise, the audience is confused. But we saw them in Finland. They were having fun. The footage inoculates the audience against the truth. It is a powerful weapon. We are just scratching the surface of this frozen deception. The money, the awkwardness, the timing, it all points to something sinister. But the real smoking gun, the piece of evidence that ties this all together, is something that happened off camera, something that only insiders are whispering about. It involves a conversation that allegedly took place between Trent and a producer right before the trip was booked. A conversation about containment. A conversation about doing whatever it takes to keep the Joose storyline positive. There are reports that the decision to go to Finland wasn't made by the family at all. It was a directive from the top, a mandate. You are going to Finland, and you are going to fix this. That changes everything. It turns a family vacation into a corporate assignment. It turns the smiles into uniforms. It turns the laughter into a contractual obligation. Think about the psychological toll on the kids. Jonah, Anna, Elizabeth, Alex, Emma. They are dragged along on this charade. They have to play their parts. They have to act excited to be in sub-zero temperatures, not because they want to travel, but because the show demands it. It reinforces the idea that their lives do not belong to them. They are props in the Trent and Amber show. And now, they are props in the international cleanup operation. Did they even want to go? Or was it presented as, we are going, end of discussion? Given the control Trent and Amber exert, it is highly likely the kids had zero say in this vacation. And what about the aftermath? After the cameras packed up and left Finland, has there been significant interaction with Joose? Or did the relationship go cold again once the footage was in the can? If they were truly family, truly connected, we would see constant updates, FaceTimes, visits. But the silence since the trip speaks volumes. It suggests the mission was accomplished. The box was checked, the asset was secured, and now they can move on to the next storyline without worrying about an exposé from Scandinavia. The dangerous secret isn't just one thing. It's a collection of lies. The lie that they paid for it. The lie that it was for fun. The lie that Joose wanted them there. The lie that everything is perfect. When you pile that many lies on top of each other, eventually the weight causes the floor to collapse. And we are standing on the edge of that collapse right now. As we prepare to go even deeper into the specific Joose problem and the alleged threats that sparked this journey, remember that everything you see on TV is curated. But sometimes, what they don't show you is far more interesting than what they do. The Finland trip was a masterpiece of misdirection, a sleight of hand performed in snow gloves. And we are the only ones pointing out the wires holding up the illusion. Stay tuned, because the rabbit hole goes much deeper than just a plane ticket. We need to talk about what happened when the cameras stopped rolling in Helsinki, and the alleged ultimatum that was delivered in the dead of the Nordic night. We need to talk about the Whisper Network. Before the Johnstons ever set foot in the airport to head to Helsinki, there was noise. Not the kind of noise you hear on social media, but the kind of noise that happens in boardrooms and legal offices. The theory, and I want to stress that this is a theory based on insider chatter, is that the Joose problem had escalated to a code red. We have heard reports that after Joose returned to Finland following his exchange program, the communication didn't just drift apart, it allegedly turned sour. There are rumors of a leaked conversation, perhaps in a private group chat or a localized Finnish forum, where Joose was much less guarded about his time in Georgia. Imagine this scenario. A teenager returns home to his friends. They ask, "What was it really like?" And he tells the truth. He tells them about the cameras being in his face from the moment he woke up. He tells them about the pressure to perform, to be the funny foreign kid. He tells them about the moods in the house when the cameras weren't rolling. The rumor is that Joose described an environment that was chaotic, stressful, and fundamentally fake. This chatter started to filter back to the States. TLC monitors everything. They have teams dedicated to protecting the brand. If a former cast member, especially one as beloved as Joose, starts unraveling the production secrets, the entire show is at risk. This brings us to the urgent mission. The timeline of the trip is suspicious. Usually, international specials are planned a year out. This one felt rushed. It felt reactive. Why? Because you don't plan a vacation to Finland in the dead of winter unless you have to. You go in the summer when the days are long and the weather is bearable. Going in the freezing dark suggests urgency. The theory here is that the network realized they needed to get to Joose before a journalist did. They needed to intercept him. The trip was a containment operation. The objective was twofold. First, remind Joose of the benefits of being on Team Johnston. Fame, attention, gifts, fun experiences. It's hard to badmouth people who are currently buying you reindeer dinners and taking you on snowmobile safaris. It's a psychological tactic called love bombing. You overwhelm the target with affection and grand gestures so they feel guilty about having any negative thoughts. Second, and more importantly, they needed to get him back on camera. This is the most diabolical part of the theory. By filming a reunion special, they were creating a contemporary document of consent. If Joose is on camera smiling, hugging Trent, and saying, "I missed you," that footage becomes a shield. If, 6 months later, a story breaks where Joose claims he was mistreated, TLC can simply release the Finland tapes and say, "Look, he loves them. He was just vacationing with them." This story is false. The entire special serves as a witness for the defense. It is hours of footage designed to discredit any future whistleblower attempts. It was a business trip disguised as a holiday, and Joose was the unwitting signee of a visual contract. Let's look at the proof in the editing. There is a specific scene that theorists point to, the moment they arrive at Joose's house. Watch the door open. Watch the initial reaction. It's polite. It's Finnish. But is it warm? Some language experts who have reviewed the footage suggest that Joose's posture is defensive. He crosses his arms. He steps back. He lets them enter his space, but he doesn't invite them in emotionally. And look at the camera placement. The crew is already inside. They had already set up the lights. This means the surprise reunion was staged. Joose knew they were coming, obviously, but the staging of it stripped away any genuine emotion. He was hitting a mark. He was performing a scene. The awkwardness with Joose wasn't just cultural. It was the friction of a young man realizing he is trapped in a storyline he thought he had escaped. He thought his contract was done when he left Georgia. But the Johnstons followed him. They chased him across the ocean to drag him back into the narrative. There are moments during the trip where Joose looks exhausted. Not jet-lagged, but spiritually drained. Dealing with Trent's constant jokes, Amber's micromanaging of the schedule, and the producers prompting him to act excited about the snow, it's a lot. And we have to address the money as a bribe concept. We talked about the cost of the trip, but think about it as a payoff. We don't know what Joose was paid for this special, but international filming usually comes with a separate contract. Did TLC cut Joose a fat check to film these episodes? A check that came with a strict, renewed, non-disclosure agreement? It is highly probable. The vacation was the transaction. The Johnstons get their wholesome content, the network gets their safety net, and Joose gets a payout to keep his mouth shut and play along for a few more days. It's cynical, but that is how the reality TV sausage is made. If you subscribe to this theory, it changes how you watch every single interaction in those Finland episodes. The sauna scene becomes a pressure cooker. The family dinners become negotiation tables. When Trent asks Joose about his life, he isn't just making conversation. He is checking for leaks. He is assessing Joose's loyalty. Are you still with us? Are you still playing the game? The language barrier actually helps the Johnstons here. It allows them to steamroll conversations. They can interpret Joose's silence however they want. If he doesn't say anything, they can fill the silence with their own narrative. Oh, he's just overwhelmed by how much he missed us. No, maybe he's just overwhelmed by your presence. Let's zoom out and look at the grand conclusion. What does this trip tell us about the current state of 7 Little Johnstons? It tells us that the show is in survival mode. They are running out of organic storylines. The kids are growing up. Relationships are getting stale. The drama with Jonah and Anna is getting too dark and repetitive. They needed a win. They needed a return to innocence. Joose represents the last time the show felt pure. He was the golden era. Bringing him back was a desperate attempt to recapture the magic that the show has lost. But because it was forced, because it was a strategic move rather than a natural one, it felt off. The dark side of this trip is that it exposes the artificiality of their relationships. Real friends don't bring a camera crew to your house to prove they are your friends. Real families don't need a network to finance their affection. The Johnstons traveled 4,000 miles not to see a friend, but to neutralize a threat. They went to Finland to secure their assets. The entire season's arc was a massive cover-up. The editors worked overtime to paint this as a joyous occasion, using upbeat music and scenic drone shots to mask the tension. But they couldn't hide everything. They couldn't hide the forced smiles. They couldn't hide the lack of genuine, spontaneous connection. The Finland trip was a high-stakes act of reputation management, paid for by a network protecting a multi-million-dollar investment. The Johnstons are no longer just a family. They are a corporation. And like any corporation facing a PR crisis, they took action. They deployed their resources. They managed the narrative. They flew to the source of the problem and smoothed it over with cash and cameras. The vacation wasn't real. It was a business merger. It was a settlement. And we, the audience, were sold the lie that it was love. So the next time you see a clip of the Johnstons frolicking in the snow, remember what might be lurking just out of frame. Remember the lawyers, remember the contracts, remember the panic that likely fueled that flight. The snow in Finland is white and pure, but the reason the Johnstons were there? That is dark, murky, and incredibly calculating. This investigation is far from over. As more insiders come forward, and as we analyze the timeline of events surrounding the airing of these episodes, the picture becomes clearer. The Johnstons didn't flee to Finland for a holiday. They fled to Finland to save their show. And the sad part is, Joose was just a pawn in their game of reality TV chess. He was the piece they needed to capture to keep the king and queen safe on their throne. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you buy the official story? Do you think they just missed him? Or does the crisis management theory make more sense to you given the insane cost and the awkward vibes? Look at the footage yourself and tell me in the comments if you see the tension I'm talking about. Don't forget to like this video if you want us to keep digging into the secrets TLC doesn't want you to know. We are watching, we are analyzing, and we are not afraid to tell the truth about the darker side of reality TV. Subscribe and stay tuned because the next investigation is going to hit even closer to home.